The chamber of the Galactic Council was a place of power. It was a hall so large that stars themselves shone through the glass ceiling above. Great pillars of metal and light stood around the circle where the leaders of hundreds of alien worlds sat in their tall chairs. Each chair was carved for the size of its owner, massive thrones for the giant reptilians, delicate crystal seats for the insectoid kind, and shimmering energy fields for those who had no bodies at all. Every voice echoed in that hall. Every decision shaped the future of the galaxy. And on that day, the chamber was full of laughter. Not the laughter of joy, but the laughter of mockery. Once again, Earth is not here, hissed a scaled ambassador, his long tail tapping the floor. Perhaps humans are too fragile to sit among real civilizations. A ripple of chuckles passed through the hall. Another alien, one with eyes that glowed like molten fire, leaned forward. For more than 50 years, they were invited. For 50 years, they ignored us. What kind of species does that? Weak, cowardly, primitive. The chamber roared with cruel amusement. At the far end of the circle, an elder with a body of glass and crystal struck the table with his shining hand. Humans cannot hide forever. If they will not speak to us, then they are nothing. A quiet species, too afraid to show their faces. The laughter grew louder, rolling across the chamber like a storm of scorn. For years, Earth had been silent. The invitations to join the Galactic Council were sent again and again, across the stars, in every language. Other young species had answered, some eager, some desperate for protection, some hungry for power. But humans always ignored the call. At first, the Council had been patient. They told themselves humans were slow, that perhaps they did not understand. But as decades passed, silence became insult. To the Council, it was proof of weakness. They cannot even cross their own solar system without breaking their machines, sneered a thin creature with 4 jaws. And yet they think they are too important to sit with us? Pitiful. Another voice rang out, sharp and mocking. Perhaps they fear what they will see here. Perhaps they know they do not belong among greater powers. The laughter did not stop. It echoed so loud that the chamber itself seemed to shake with it. But not everyone was laughing. In the shadows, on the lower tiers where smaller worlds sent their watchers, a few quiet figures remained silent. They had heard whispers. Strange reports from ships that wandered too close to human space. Stories of lights moving faster than they should. Of signals too complex to be accidents. Of a scout vessel that entered Sol and never returned. But every time these whispers were raised, the Council brushed them aside. Malfunctions, they said. Pirates, they said. Nothing important, they said. And so the laughter continued, drowning out the quiet voices of doubt. One elder, his body wrapped in silver cloth, raised his long arms. Enough, he declared, though the corners of his mouth twitched with a smile. We will not waste more time speaking of Earth. They are nothing but a footnote in history. The galaxy moves forward without them. The chamber erupted in applause, the sound of claws, tendrils, and metallic hands striking against the table in unity. The decision was final. Earth was irrelevant. Yet, beneath the noise, a question lingered. Why had humans stayed silent for so long? No fleet had ever been seen leaving their system. No ambassador had ever crossed the stars to speak. No voice, no message, no sign of cooperation. Just silence. It was not the silence of fear. It was not the silence of ignorance. It was too perfect. Too deliberate. But the Council did not see it. They could not imagine that silence itself might be a weapon. And so they laughed, their arrogance filling the great hall, while far away, behind the quiet veil of Earth's blue skies and oceans, something vast was waiting. Something that would shake the stars. The laughter of the Galactic Council faded, but its echo still seemed to hang in the air. For most of the chamber, the matter was settled. Earth was a joke, a forgotten world at the edge of the galaxy. Yet in the quiet corners, where shadows touched the walls and smaller ambassadors sat, a few did not laugh. They remembered things. Small things. Strange things. One ambassador, from a world of ice and storm, leaned closer to his neighbor and whispered, "Do you not recall the ship that vanished near Sol?" The other, a thin creature with golden eyes, shifted uncomfortably. A malfunction, the council said. Perhaps, the first one replied, his voice low, but the signal cut off instantly. One moment, the scout was there. The next, nothing. No distress call. No debris found. Just, gone. The golden-eyed alien frowned. I heard the same. I also heard of strange readings from the edges of their system. Energy spikes that no primitive world should create. Another quiet voice joined them, an ambassador with translucent skin that glowed faintly in the dark. My traders reported seeing human ships in places they should not be. They swore those vessels moved faster than the drives we use. But when I raised the matter, the council laughed at me. The others fell silent for a moment. They all knew the truth. In the chamber of power, no one dared to challenge the greater voices. The council thrived on pride. To question the laughter was to become the target of it. And yet, the whispers continued. Far across the galaxy, on outer trade routes, stories had spread. Captains spoke of ships with black hulls, silent as shadows, seen for only a moment before they vanished again. Miners spoke of coded signals that flashed across their scanners, too fast to be accidents. Explorers spoke of warnings whispered on strange frequencies, messages that disappeared as quickly as they came. None of it was confirmed. None of it could be proven. But together, the fragments painted a picture the council refused to see. Humans were not hiding out of fear. They were watching. They were preparing. In the lower tiers of the chamber, one young observer, his body made of shifting mist, dared to speak. His voice trembled as it reached the council floor. Honored leaders, what if Earth's silence is not weakness? What if it is planning? The chamber froze for only a second. Then the laughter returned, louder than before. The great scaled ambassador pounded his clawed fist against the table. Planning. Do you truly believe those soft-boned creatures are a threat to us? Their world is one storm away from collapse. Their ships fall apart before leaving orbit. They are nothing. The crystal-bodied elder raised his gleaming hand. We will not waste this council's time on children's stories. Earth is silent because it has nothing to say. The young observer lowered his gaze. His words had been swallowed by arrogance. His warning was lost beneath the thunder of pride. Yet he could not silence the feeling in his heart. Something was wrong. Across the galaxy, more whispers spread. Traders vanished on routes too close to Sol. Pirates who thought to raid human colonies never returned. Small signals flickered in deep space, strange, sharp patterns that looked almost like language. Those who noticed were ignored. Those who asked questions were mocked. And still, Earth said nothing. Silence. Always silence. But silence is not empty. Silence is full of waiting. And somewhere, deep in the dark of space, Earth's eyes were already on them. Watching. Learning. Measuring. The council believed humans were weak. The council believed they were cowards. The council was wrong. And soon, they would learn the truth. The council chamber was quiet now, business moving on, but far from Earth, the truth was unfolding in the dark. It began with a single ship. The scout vessel Vela was small but fast, designed to slip into unknown systems and gather data without being noticed. Its crew of 6 aliens was confident after all, they were investigating a primitive world, nothing more. Humans were said to barely control their skies, let alone space. To the crew of the Vela, this was not a mission of danger. It was a mission of curiosity. The ship slid past the edge of the solar system, its scanners sweeping through the void. Cold stars glittered against the black. One by one, the planets came into view. First Neptune, its stormy blue surface spinning slowly in silence. Then Uranus, tilted and strange, wrapped in thin rings. Then Saturn, majestic with its golden bands. The crew worked with calm efficiency, laughing softly as they compared notes. So this is the human system, one muttered, tapping the glowing screen. A handful of rocks and gas. Nothing special. But as the Vela drew closer, the readings began to shift. Unusual bursts of energy flickered at the edge of their instruments. Strange patterns rippled across their long-range sensors, too ordered to be natural. The captain frowned. Interference. Perhaps, His second replied. Or, signals. The crew adjusted their scanners, narrowing the focus. For a moment, the strange patterns vanished. Then they returned, sharper than before. Lines. Pulses. A rhythm. Almost like language. Before they could decode it, something else appeared. Object detected, whispered the navigator. His voice trembled. Bearing 34 degrees, approaching fast. The crew turned to the screen. A shape was moving in the darkness. At first, it looked like nothing more than a shadow among stars. But shadows do not move with such speed. Shadows do not emit power strong enough to rattle a ship's instruments. The captain straightened. Identify it. The computers worked, flashing through categories: asteroid, debris, natural phenomenon, none matched. Finally, the screen showed a single word: unknown. The crew stared. Then the shadow lit up. From its hull, thin lines of light flared like scars across black metal. The shape grew clearer, sharp, angular, built for war. No emblem. No beacon. Silent, except for the low hum of power that made the scout ship tremble. The captain's blood ran cold. Is that human? No one answered. The shadow ship moved closer, silent as death. The Veiler's alarms blared, lights flashing red. The crew scrambled at their stations. Send a signal to the council, the captain roared. Now. The communications officer's fingers raced across controls. A pulse shot into space, carrying their warning. Message sent, he shouted. But before relief could reach them, the shadow vanished. It didn't fly away. It didn't turn. It simply disappeared, as though the stars had swallowed it whole. The crew stared at the empty screen, confusion and fear twisting in their eyes. Impossible, whispered the navigator. No ship can move like that. The captain tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. Then, without warning, the lights on the bridge flickered. A sound, low, deep, almost like a growl, echoed through the ship. The crew froze. It was not mechanical. It was not an error. It was deliberate. Something was inside their systems. The controls died one by one. Engines offline. Shields offline. Weapons offline. The captain slammed his fist against the console. Fight it. Regain control. But it was too late. The Veiler shook violently, as though gripped by an unseen hand. The stars outside blurred. A blinding white light filled the bridge. And then, silence. The scout ship was gone. No signal. No wreckage. No crew. Only the empty black of space remained. Back in the council chamber, weeks later, a single report arrived. It contained only fragments, a broken signal, half a warning, cut short mid-sentence. The words were scrambled, distorted, but one line was clear. They are watching us. The council dismissed it as error, as accident, as nothing. But the whispers began again. Quiet, fearful whispers in the shadows. Because somewhere, in the deep silence of space, humans had shown themselves. Not with words. Not with meetings. But with a warning. The disappearance of the scout ship Veiler should have been enough to shake the council. A ship gone without trace, its last message broken, its crew never found. Such an event had toppled entire governments before. But the council was arrogant. When the fragments of the Veiler's final signal reached them, the chamber filled with noise. The message was simple, distorted by static, but one part had been clear. They are watching us. For a moment, the great hall grew uneasy. Leaders shifted in their chairs. Some whispered among themselves. A few even frowned in thought. But then, the laughter returned. They mocked the scaled ambassador, his voice cutting through the silence. Humans. Watching us. They can barely watch their own skies. The chamber erupted again with cruel amusement. The incident was explained away: malfunction, pirate ambush, or simple failure. To admit otherwise would mean admitting weakness. And the council did not accept weakness. In their records, the Veiler became a footnote, lost in deep space, cause unknown. Nothing more. And so, the galaxy moved on. Years passed. New alliances formed. Wars were fought in distant sectors. Trade routes grew. Civilizations rose and fell. And all the while, Earth remained silent. No ambassador ever came. No human ships appeared in official records. Not one word was spoken to the wider galaxy. The Council convinced itself this was proof of cowardice. If they had any strength, the Crystal Elder declared in one meeting, they would stand among us. Their silence shows only fear. And the chamber laughed again. But beneath that laughter, whispers still spread. A trader swore he saw black shapes moving beyond Pluto's orbit. A miner claimed strange frequencies had scrambled his drills when passing near Sol. A pirate gang vanished without trace after entering human space. Each story was dismissed as rumor. The galaxy is full of stories. Yet the whispers never stopped. They spread like smoke, thin and quiet, creeping into every shadow. Some leaders noticed. Some even grew cautious. But none dared to speak too loudly. To question the Council's pride was to invite ridicule, and no one wished to become the next joke. And so the silence of Earth continued. It became almost comfortable, like the silence before sleep. The galaxy grew used to it, like one grows used to the stillness of night. They forgot the warning of the Veiler. They forgot the broken signal. They told themselves Earth was nothing. They told themselves silence was weakness. But silence is not always weakness. Silence can be waiting. Silence can be building. Silence can be the breath before the storm. On the edge of the galaxy, far from the Council's shining halls, a small patrol frigate drifted past the stars. Its crew relaxed, believing their route uneventful. Suddenly, one of them noticed something odd on the scanner. A flicker. A shadow. A shape too fast to be real. Another malfunction, the captain asked. The crew nodded nervously. Nothing appeared on the second scan. The shadow was gone. But in the black void, just beyond their vision, something enormous was there. Waiting. Watching. The frigate never reported it. The crew never spoke of it again. Some silences were easier to ignore. Back in the council chamber, the arrogance grew. Humans have missed a century of meetings, the scaled ambassador said with a sneer. They are no more than dust clinging to a forgotten world. The galaxy belongs to those who claim it, not those who hide from it. The hall applauded. Decisions were made. The galaxy moved forward. But if one had looked closely at the skies above Earth, they would have seen movement. Not one ship. Not 10. But hundreds, gliding in silence, their black hulls swallowing the starlight. Their engines glowed faintly, like embers waiting to ignite. The humans were not hiding. They were preparing. The council had mistaken silence for fear. But silence was never fear. Silence was patience. And patience was running out. The council chamber was alive with noise. Hundreds of alien voices clashed together, debating trade, arguing over borders, boasting of victories. It was a normal meeting, one of countless before it. The air shimmered with holographic maps, and the light of distant stars spilled down through the glass ceiling. To them, Earth was already forgotten. Not one ambassador spoke of the humans that day. Not one mentioned the missing Veiler. Not one recalled the strange whispers that had spread through trade routes. The council was too busy laughing at other matters. And then everything changed. It began with a sound. A low alarm, soft at first, barely noticed. It pulsed through the walls of the chamber, a warning tone the council had not heard in decades. Conversations stumbled, then stopped. Eyes turned upward as the alarm grew louder, sharper, urgent. The great doors at the edge of the chamber swung open. A guard, his metallic armor flashing in the light, stormed inside. His voice shook as he shouted. Unknown fleet detected. The chamber fell silent. The scaled ambassador rose to his feet, his tail twitching with unease. Whose fleet? What world dares? The guard interrupted, trembling. Not one world, honored council. Thousands of ships. They have exited hyperspace. They are here. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The crystal elder leaned forward, his glowing eyes narrowing. Nonsense. No fleet moves undetected. Identify them. The guard hesitated. His words came out like broken glass. Humans. For a moment, the chamber was utterly still. No one spoke. No one even breathed. Then the hall erupted in chaos. "Impossible," one ambassador shouted. "Humans cannot build ships like that," cried another. "This is a trick," roared a third. But the holographic maps above the chamber did not lie. Lines of light spread across the display, each one marking a human vessel. Not 10. Not 100. But thousands, emerging from hyperspace around the very heart of the galaxy. The chamber shook as the sensors updated. The fleet was massive, larger than anything the Council had seen in centuries. Each ship was black as night, sharp as blades, glowing faintly with terrible energy. They did not drift in chaos like a pirate band. They moved with precision, like a single living creature. The laughter that had once filled the chamber was gone. Now there was only fear. On the council floor, voices shouted over one another, panic rising. How did they hide this? Where did they get the resources? How is this possible? But one truth became clear: the silence of Earth had never been weakness. It had been the sound of building, of forging, of preparing for the day they would reveal themselves. The scaled ambassador slammed his claws against the table. "We must call our fleets. We must." Before he could finish, the chamber shook. Through the glass ceiling, the stars themselves seemed to move. The human fleet was descending. Thousands of warships slid into position, black hulls blotting out the heavens. Their engines glowed like suns, casting eerie light over the Council's homeworld. No one laughed now. The chamber was filled with pale faces, trembling hands, and wide, terrified eyes. The same aliens who once mocked Earth now felt their hearts pound with dread. One of the younger ambassadors whispered what all were thinking. They were silent, because they were waiting. The great doors opened again. Another guard rushed inside, his voice nearly breaking. "A signal from the fleet," he stammered. "The humans, they wish to speak." The council chamber froze. Every ambassador turned, staring at the shimmering holographic display. For the first time in history, humanity's silence was broken, not with laughter, not with weakness, but with the arrival of a fleet so vast it could eclipse the stars. And in that moment, the galaxy understood. The storm had come. The human fleet hung in the skies above the Council's homeworld like a storm of black blades. Thousands of ships, sharp and angular, drifted into formation. Their hulls swallowed the starlight, their engines glowed with power, and their weapons shone faintly, ready, waiting. For a moment, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Inside the great council chamber, panic had turned to silence. No one spoke. No one laughed. All eyes stared upward at the holographic display that filled the hall. Ship after ship appeared on the map. Their numbers kept climbing. Hundreds. Thousands. More than the combined fleets of 3 of the Council's strongest empires. The scaled ambassador, once loud and mocking, now trembled in his seat. His tail no longer lashed in arrogance but coiled tight with fear. This cannot be," he whispered. Humans were weak. They were nothing. But weakness did not look like this. The crystal-bodied elder rose to his feet, his glowing eyes fixed on the display. "Their energy readings," he muttered. "Their reactors burn hotter than any known design. Their weapons. I have never seen signatures like these." His crystal form flickered with unease. "This is not the fleet of a primitive world." Whispers broke out across the chamber. How long were they building this? How did they hide it from us? Why did no one see? The truth was simple. The galaxy had been laughing too loudly to listen. Far above, the first wave of human ships shifted. Their formations tightened, precise, disciplined, like the movement of a blade about to strike. The Council's planetary defense grids lit up in response. Towers across the capital glowed as shields activated. Fighters launched from underground hangars. Sirens howled across the city. But deep down, every council member knew the truth. Their defenses were useless. Against this fleet, their world was a candle before a hurricane. A voice trembled from one of the younger ambassadors. "If they attack, we will not survive." The words sent a chill through the chamber. It was the first time anyone had spoken the truth aloud. The scaled ambassador bared his teeth in fear. Summon our fleets. Summon every empire we control. We must. His words were cut short. The chamber shook violently as something enormous moved into orbit. The holographic display flickered, then updated. At the center of the human formation, a colossal flagship appeared. Larger than any ship the Council had ever seen, it glowed with rivers of energy running through its hull. Its presence was overwhelming, a shadow that swallowed all others. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some ambassadors sank into their seats. Others pressed their hands against their faces in disbelief. "This," whispered the Crystal Elder, his voice unsteady, "this is a fleet meant not for war, but for domination." For the first time, the laughter that had once mocked Earth now returned as fear, shaken breaths, nervous mutters, panicked cries. The same mouths that had once called humans weak now begged silently for mercy. Suddenly, the holographic display shimmered. A channel opened. The humans were speaking. The voice that filled the chamber was calm, deep, and steady. It carried no anger, no arrogance. Only certainty. "We warned you with silence. You chose to mock it." The Council froze. Every alien in the hall felt the weight of the words pressing into their hearts. "You called us weak," the voice continued. "You believed silence meant fear. But silence is patience. Silence is preparation. Silence is power." The chamber was deathly still. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Outside, the human fleet shifted again, weapons powering. The skies lit up as energy pulsed through their hulls. The Council's homeworld trembled under the pressure. The Crystal Elder collapsed back into his seat, his glowing body dimming. "We cannot fight this," he whispered. "We cannot even understand it." The Scaled Ambassador, once proud, lowered his head. His voice was a whisper, broken and afraid. "We mocked them, and now, they have come." In that moment, every Council member knew the truth. The galaxy had changed. And Earth had arrived not to join, but to rule. The Council chamber was frozen. Every alien sat in silence, eyes wide, hearts pounding. The voice of the human commander still echoed through the great hall. "Silence is patience. Silence is preparation. Silence is power." The words lingered like thunder long after the sound was gone. On the holographic display, the human fleet glowed brighter, their colossal flagship dominating the screen. Its surface pulsed with energy, like a beating heart made of fire and steel. The light reflected in the chamber, washing every alien face in pale, ghostly shadows. The Scaled Ambassador clenched his claws against the table. He wanted to speak, but no words came. His throat was dry. His pride, once a weapon, now felt like a curse. Finally, the human voice returned. Calm. Cold. Steady. "For centuries, you mocked us. You said humans were fragile, simple, weak. You laughed as we stayed silent. You believed our absence meant fear." The Council chamber shook as if the very walls understood the truth. "But you were wrong." The words fell like blades. The Crystal Elder leaned forward, trembling. His glowing body dimmed with each word, as if the human's voice was draining the very strength from him. "What do they want?" he whispered. The answer came at once. "We want you to remember." The chamber stirred. Ambassadors exchanged fearful glances. "Remember," the human continued, "that every insult has a price. Remember that every mockery has a cost. You believed silence meant surrender. But silence was our shield. While you mocked, we built. While you laughed, we prepared. While you ignored us, we learned everything about you." Gasps filled the chamber. The insectoid ambassador hissed, her mandibles clicking nervously. "They studied us?" The voice answered her thought as if it had read her mind. "Yes. We studied your ships. Your weapons. Your weaknesses. We listened to every word you spoke about us. Every insult. Every laugh. Every council session where you used Earth as a joke. We remember them all." The chamber grew colder. Some ambassadors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others could not move at all. Fear locked their bodies in place. The massive human flagship moved closer on the display, blotting out stars as if it swallowed light itself. The voice deepened. And now, we arrive not to ask. Not to beg. Not to join. We arrive to remind you that silence is not emptiness. Silence is warning. The scaled ambassador slammed his clawed hand on the table, trying to sound brave. You cannot threaten the council. We are the galaxy's greatest force. We. The chamber shook again, harder this time. Every light in the room flickered. Outside, the human fleet had powered its weapons. 1,000 warships lit the skies in unison, their cannons glowing with blinding energy. The image filled the chamber like the fury of 1,000 suns. The scaled ambassador's words died in his throat. His eyes widened. His hands trembled. The human commander's voice returned, cutting through the silence. You say you are the greatest force. Then tell me, why do you tremble? Every alien froze. The words felt like claws pressing into their hearts. The insectoid ambassador collapsed back into her seat, mandibles clicking in terror. The crystalline elder lowered his glowing head in shame. None dared to speak. The voice grew even colder. You mocked us because we were silent. You feared nothing. Now you fear everything. You should. Because Earth has come not as a student, but as a storm. The holographic display zoomed out, showing the entire human fleet spread across the system like a web of fire. Thousands of ships. Thousands of weapons. And at the center, the colossal flagship glowing like a sun. The voice gave its final warning. Remember this moment. You are no longer rulers of this galaxy. From this day forward, when the council speaks, it will speak with our shadow over you. When you laugh, it will be with our guns above your skies. You will remember Earth. The transmission ended. Silence crushed the chamber. The council members sat motionless, their bodies heavy with fear. The scaled ambassador, once the loudest voice, now whispered only one word. Impossible. But the impossible was here. The galaxy had changed forever. And Earth had spoken. The council chamber was drowning in silence. The words of the human commander still hung in the air, heavy as iron. You will remember Earth. Every ambassador sat frozen in fear. Some trembled openly. Others tried to hide their terror, but their eyes betrayed them. The great chamber, once filled with mocking laughter, was now a tomb of shame and dread. The scaled ambassador, who had once been loudest in his insults, no longer met anyone's gaze. His claws scratched the table nervously, but no sound came from his mouth. His pride had been broken. The crystal elder leaned forward, his glowing body dimmed almost to darkness. His voice cracked like breaking glass. They are beyond us. No fleet in this galaxy can face them. The insectoid ambassador twitched her wings in panic. If they attack, this world will be ashes before we can even speak again. What are we to do? No one answered. Above, the holographic display still showed the human fleet. 1,000 warships. A colossal flagship burning like a false sun. Their weapons remained powered, glowing brighter than the defenses of the entire capital. The fear was not only in the chamber. Across the council's homeworld, people looked to the skies and saw shadows blotting out the stars. Cities trembled. Soldiers abandoned posts. Civilians prayed to gods long forgotten. The presence of Earth had become a storm that covered every heart. Finally, a voice spoke. It was not human. It came from the smallest ambassador, a frail creature with thin, trembling hands. His voice was soft, almost broken. We mocked them, and now they own us. We have no choice. We must bow. The words struck the chamber like a whip. Some ambassadors hissed in protest. Others looked down in shame. But no one disagreed. Deep inside, they all knew it was true. The scaled ambassador slammed his claws against the table, trying to find courage. His voice shook with rage and fear. We are the Galactic Council. We were rulers of 1,000 stars. We cannot bow to a species that hid in silence. The crystal elder turned his glowing eyes toward him. And yet, here we sit. Our weapons useless. Our defenses weak. Our people trembling. If we resist, we die. If we bow, we live. The chamber grew still again. The truth was clear. Suddenly, the display flickered once more. The human voice returned, sharper than a blade. You have one choice. Every head lifted in fear. Submit, the voice said, or be erased. The words were cold, merciless, final. The insectoid ambassador pressed her trembling hands together. Submit, or die, she whispered, repeating the human's ultimatum. The scaled ambassador closed his eyes. His pride cracked like stone under pressure. At last, he lowered his head. We submit. One by one, the others followed. The insectoid ambassador bowed her head. The crystalline elder dimmed in surrender. Across the chamber, voices rose in broken agreement. We submit. We submit. We submit. The human fleet did not move. The colossal flagship remained still, watching. But every ambassador in that chamber felt it, the humans knew. They had won. For the first time in history, the Galactic Council had bent its knees. Not to one of its own empires. Not to a rising alien power. But to Earth, the species they had mocked, ignored, and ridiculed. The human voice spoke one last time, final and absolute. Then remember your choice. From this day forward, when you gather under our shadow. When you speak under our silence. When you laugh, you will remember what it cost you. The transmission ended. The holographic display faded, but the fear remained. Outside, the human fleet slowly pulled back, leaving their shadow across the stars. They did not fire a single shot. They did not need to. Inside the chamber, the council sat broken. No laughter remained. No pride. Only the cold truth. The galaxy now lived in the age of Earth. And in that age, silence was no longer weakness. Silence was the sound of power.